Hi there and welcome to BusterNet. Yes, this is the second in a series of videos I'm going to be doing featuring Torino's training program. The whole goal now on BusterNet, this video channel, is to drive my shows in three directions. Gloucester City will focus on tactics. So you submit the tactics, I try them out, I do some fiddling with the tactics to make them optimal for my team, and then we share the ideas. Then I have the Asian Journeyman, which focuses on the LLM journey of a coach without any licenses across Asia. Finally, we have this series, the training series, where I zoom in with Torino. And what I do in Torino is, we go through the whole training cycle, we show how we develop our players, and eventually how they fit into a system, basically, how you create a legacy system. And in the first episode, I featured setting it up setting up your facilities, looking for five-star coaches. I spoke about potential ability and current ability. On today's show, I'm going to be looking at the player development cycle and how you set it all up so that you can manage your players' growth and development over the course of a few seasons. Before we get into that, let's take a look at some of the training screens that we have. Now, we have a default training screen that comes in the game, and it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it, except I'm a bit of a, you know, I'm pretty particular. I like to see more stuff. So if you're like me and you want more information because it gives you a bit more control, then go and customize your screen and make sure that you have several things included. I usually recommend that you have age showing so that you know your players' ages. If you don't really need this, the DNA. In my particular case, I like it. Anyway, my screen is really large, so I can squeeze a lot of information there. You also want to have their personality, the squad status, training position and role that they're currently training in, workload, additional focus, new player trait, and potential. Why? Now, if you have any of if you have all this information here, then you can do lots of things. Like for example, for certain players, you need to know if they can tutor other players. So you'll need to know their squad status. Here we have Andre Polzano. He's professional, but he's a hot prospect. He can't tutor anyone. He has to be a key player can tutor players below him in terms of their seniority in the squad. And you want personality as well. I'll go into personality in a bit, but you want to know their personality so you can determine which are the players you want to tutor. Finally, I like to see workload because I don't want anybody to be very heavy. As long as it's a mix of heavy and medium, it's fine. The reason why it is not even is because players have different personalities. Players who determine usually they'll have a workload of medium, or in this particular case, we've got two players here. They have additional focus. If I remove the additional focus, their workload will drop to medium. However, if I now change the training I change the team training and go and change it to very high. If you run the game for one day and you go back to this screen, you probably see a lot of very heavies here. So you don't want to create a situation where the overall workload of the team is heavy here. That's the best thing. You want individual workloads to be heavy. And how do you know individual workloads are very heavy? That's why I have this screen here. This is individual workload. So it tells me all the individual workloads of each player without me having to do this, which is to click here and go and look at this small little information screen right at the bottom here, which is a pain in the ass. So I don't want to do that. Um, New player traits are all the PPMs. I haven't started training any of my players in PPMs, but I plan to because this show is going to be devoted towards creating a team around a particular play style, or I want players to have certain PPMs that will give me a lot of flexibility in the way I set up my tactics. So there are two directions you can go in. You can create players based on a template that you like, or you can make them fit into a tactic that you want. I generally prefer the latter, that would be the former. Sorry, I prefer creating player templates. So if I have a playmaker, I want him to have certain PPMs like dictates tempo, likes to switch ball to other flank and play killer passes. And for my defenders, I don't want them to be diving into tackles. I want them to stand on feet. So these are the PPMs I like to give to my players, and I want to make sure that they get these PPMs before they hit 21. In Torino's case, I was more interested in chasing after the title at this point, previous seasons. And now I want more focus on creating legacy. So I've been saving this up for you guys so that we can um, experience it together, so you can see what I'm doing. Because I honestly feel that when it comes to training, saying it or writing a guide about it helps because a lot of this information comes with a guide anyway, my guide. However, you need to put it into a context. You need to put it into your team. You need to talk about them developing over time. So you can write about it in a guide, but after a while you don't see the relationship. You won't be able to tell what's going on, which is the reason why I've done the video. And this video is going to track the growth of this team and see whether or not we can push any boys from the academy into the first team, and that's the ultimate goal. Now, before we proceed any further, let's talk about one other thing. Let's recap current ability and potential ability. Now, here, for example, we see a player with 2.5 stars of current ability and 3 stars with a black star. This means that the coaches aren't too sure about his potential ability. It could be 4 stars, it could be 3 stars. They're not sure. However, even if it was 3 stars, our player Andre Polsano is not playing to the best of his ability. So he's at 2.5 stars. If he's playing at 3 stars right now, that means he's playing to his potential. It is an indication that the player has not been playing enough games. So what you want to do over time is to make sure that your players who you bring into the squad get a chance to play. Now, the Serie A is in terms of developing players, surprisingly, the Premiership is a very good venue because your squad size on match day can only be about 16 or 17, if I'm not mistaken. But in the Serie A, it can be 24. So you're tempted to bring in 24 players, and sometimes they don't get a chance to play. The ideal squad size is actually 16 if you want to develop players. So make sure that the 16 players that you have, you're bringing with you, include a few youngsters that you want to groom, and make sure they get at least a certain number of games over the season. Now, why is this? First, let's smash a few myths. Determination plays no role in training. It plays a role in the game itself when you're playing a match and trying to, come back from a goal down. But it has no place in training because it's one of those small little subsets. The most important thing that will drive a player into performing well in training is playing time and his personality. Now, personality is the biggest important thing. Why? A player with a good personality is always going to be training, and you probably get the most out of him even in matches. So, one of the things you want to do in your game, I've got a book, and this is in one of my books that my patrons get access to. Now, what you do is you find a kind of a group of players who fit certain personalities. Now, you can get iron-willed, ambitious, very ambitious, spirited, fairly professional, model professional, resolute, perfectionist, and model citizens. Born leaders, I've never seen one yet. And I have seen one model citizen, but it's very, very rare. It's important to keep players with great personalities in your squad. Sometimes you may even end up, scouting for players who are senior, who have great personalities, and you add them to your team. Another good thing that you can do is your head of youth development, make sure that he's a model citizen or a model professional. And if you can get one of those, then he influences the kind of regions that you get. So essentially, it's pretty simple. The cycle that I use for player development. Before they turn 17, they join the club, right? So as they can join the club before they're 17, I will decide the players based on natural fitness. So those who have good natural fitness, they usually end up staying in my club. Those who don't, if it's less than 5 or 6, they'll go. If it's about 10 or 11, they might stay. But the goal is before they're 17, they go to the under 18s team and they stay in the club. They do not go on loan. It's this time where I identify the players who are going to learn PPMs as well. So between the ages of 17 to 21, players are given personality tutoring. So if they don't have a strong personality, let's say they're jovial, for example, I'll find a senior player who's got the right personality to tutor him so that his personality will change, hopefully. And we also shortlist players for the main team. I will start identifying those players I think can crack into the senior team, and I will start dealing with PPMs with them, and I start giving them PPM training, and I will give them generic PPMs. Like for playmakers, I give them to take tempo, like to switch ball to other flank. They have to have the right attributes in the first place, right? So sometimes they don't have them, so I wait. Finally, by the time they hit 21, that's the time when I have already decided, okay, fine, we have a bunch of players who are good enough to play in the first team, or we're going to have a bunch of players that are just not good enough to play in the first team. So those players who can play in the first team, I usually whittle the list down to about 3 to 4, and these players get a chance, they get included into the first team. So I make sure that they play at least 15 games in the season. I find that the ideal squad size to do this kind of thing is about 16. You will be able to get all your players enough game time. Now, those players are not good enough. That I don't think they're neither here nor there. They're sent out on loan. One good story I have is Z Gomez. In FM16, Z Gomez was sent on loan until he was 22 years old. And then I brought him back because while he was on loan, he started cracking a lot of goals. And that's when I started taking notice of him. Same with Vittorio Paragini. Paragini was also sent on loan. And these two are very good examples of players that developed and blossomed while they were on loan. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they going on loan is a bad thing. You must make sure that they go to a club which is of a certain standard. So if you're Serie A, if you can get a Serie A team that says you're a key player, that's great. So in the case of Z Gomez and Paragini, I made sure that they were playing for clubs in either the Serie A or the French National League, Division One somewhere. So and they must have first team or key player status. By the time the players are 24, you will know if they are going to be your standard first team players or they're going to be sold. So this is the development cycle from between 17 to 24. I only look at this age period, and then after that 24 is just, oh great, he's developing, because he should be a first team player by then. The goal here is to make sure that your players play a certain amount of matches. This is the most important thing. They need personality, they need game time, and they need to be playing with the right kind of players. So you don't, just because they go on loan. If you're playing the Serie A and you decide, oh, I'm going to send him on loan to fourth division club in England, forget it. He's not ever going to grow. So he has to play with suitable, high quality teammates. So this is something that you have to bear in mind. Basically, once they hit about 24, I'm very cautious about what I do with their training. I don't want to choose training programs that cover all the attributes. I'm very specific about the attributes, and I use individual focus to tailor their training in a specific direction. And we'll go through all of that later. But for now, let's talk about just setting it up and understanding the whole cycle. So the goal of these training series videos is to make sure that the information comes out in as concise a fashion as possible, so that you don't have to go through hours of videos just to find 5 minutes of information that you might think is relevant. On today's show, we covered CAPA, squad views, player development cycles, a whole host of things, as well as personalities. Now, in the next show, I'm going to start looking at training schedules in a lot more detail, because we're coming to the preseason training schedule, and we're going to start looking at how we set up training schedules and how we manage these training schedules as well across the whole season. And I hope you guys can join me for the next video. Now, if you have any questions, please look me up on Twitter at BusterNet or addicted2fm.com, my website. Once again, I'd like to thank all my patrons for making this video possible. It goes out to everyone, and I'd like to thank them for making that possible. Thank you very much. You guys have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.